will be in your notes. We're gonna do A's and B's together today, and then we'll get to C's today too. Which the faster we can get to A, B, C, and D, then the faster it is that we can just give you, here is the function, go graph it, kind of a deal. Okay? So let's do this. Okay? So yesterday we learned that the A part was the amplitude. Okay? The B part was the period. So the amplitude was the vertical stretch from yesterday. Okay? Vertical stretch, vertical shrink. And then the B is the horizontal stretch, the horizontal shrink from that. Okay? Okay? So that was from yesterday. Let's do this one. Now, kicker here is negatives. You gotta pay attention to negatives. Okay? And what I mean by that is you've got to look to see where the negatives are. If it's a negative A value, it flips automatically. So it flips both sine and cosine if you have a negative A value. If you have a negative B value, it is only going to flip the sine function. Okay? Because if you think back to when we were doing obviosities, I don't have my big, where'd my big unit circle go? Row? Here it is. Found it. My big unit circle. When we think about this, if we go in the negative, no, it's falling. I just need to probably trim the bottom, do a little fixing on it. The cosine stays the same if we go in the negative direction. Okay, so if we go at negative pi over 6, cosine values are the same. So a negative cosine, or cosine of negative x is equal to cosine of x. We learned that in the obviosities. For sine, if we go in the negative direction, now the sign is inverted, so it's flipped. So that's why we only flip the sine function. Okay? So this particular one has a domain of all real numbers, because all of our domains are always going to be all real numbers. This particular one has a middle at 0, because we haven't gotten any D's yet. This particular one has a start of 0, because we're always starting at 0. We haven't gotten to C's yet. We will in a half an hour. What is the amplitude of this function? 1. Okay, I would agree that the amplitude is 1. Which means my high is at 1, my low is at negative 1. Which means my range is from negative 1 to positive 1. What is my period of this one? How did we find period from yesterday? 2 pi divided by b. So my period is going to be 2 pi divided by absolute value of b, which is 1/2. 2 pi divided by 1/2 is 4 pi. So the period of this function is going to be 4 pi, which means it's going to end at 4 pi. Negative b value, flip the sign. So it will look like that. High value of 1, middle value of 0, low value of -1. Started at 0, ended at 4 pi. Halfway is 2 pi. Halfway is pi. Other halfway is 3 pi. Okay. Negative a's, flip them both. Negative b's just flips the sign. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Okay, try that one. Now we got a combination of A's and B's. I get an amplitude of 3, which puts my high at 3, my low at -3, which makes my range there. My period is going to be 2 pi divided by 1/2, which is going to be 4 pi once again, which means starting at 0, ending at 4 pi. Sign with no negatives. That goes up to 3, goes down to -3. Agree? Yeah? Awesome sauce. Try that one. So it should just be a flip of the one that we just did. Okay. Mix it up a little bit. Try that one. Ooh, that's bad. Agree? Yeah. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Kick it up a notch. Oh, regular sine. Half of pi over 2 is pi over 4. Half of pi over 4 is pi over 8. Average of pi over 4 and pi over 2 is 3 pi over 8. Oops, I forgot. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? All right. Let's add in C. Okay. What C does is C is going to horizontally shift our function. Now, the kicker is, because C is inside two sets of parentheses, we have to think opposite. In math, with functions, anytime that you think of something that's inside one set of parentheses, you think opposite. Okay? If you think back to Algebra 2 when you guys were graphing and dealing with parabolas, okay? The vertex form of a parabola had x minus h quantity squared. Okay? And you thought oppositely back then. That still holds going forward. So if I see here x minus pi over 2, that is a right shift by pi over 2. We're going to take our graph and we're going to move it to the right pi over 2 units. Okay. If I see x plus 7 there, we're going to take our graph and that is going to be a left shift by 7. We got to think oppositely on that. Now, what that C value does, so far, up until this point, for the last 48 hours, your C value, actually probably not even really. Today's only Wednesday. So really for the only last 24 hours, maybe a little bit more. Your C value has been 0. Right? So now, if there's a C value, this is the That is the start. That's where your function is going to start. Okay? Which is why it's important to know that we got to think oppositely on that one. Okay. So A still is that vertical stretch. B still is that horizontal stretch. C now takes our starting spot and moves it horizontally. Okay, let's do one. So now, before you start, hold on up here, just so you don't freak out on this stuff. From now on, our graphs to start are going to look like this, because we don't know where those axes go yet. Okay? So we don't put in our axes until the end, just so you know. So if you see a page like this one comes on, now why are we only graphing stuff in quadrant 4, or quadrant 3, excuse me? No. We're going to add our axes in a little bit later on. Okay? So, let's look at this one here now. Our domain is still going to be all real numbers. Our middle is still going to be 0 until tomorrow. Okay? But now, those are the only two things that get locked in every single time. Okay? After tomorrow, the domain is the only one that you're going to know is always going to be all real numbers.
Since there's not something around the cosine, don't we know if the amplitude is only 1, 2?
Yep. But that can change, you know what I mean, based off of the problem. These right now won't change. Okay? So amplitude is 1, which means that we go up 1, we go down 1, range -1 to +1. Okay? Where do we start? Nope. I've heard negative pi over 3 and I've heard positive pi over 3.
No, because you shift it to the right, so it'd be pi over 3.
We think oppositely, right? It looks like it should be negative pi over 3. Thinking oppositely means it's really pi over 3. So we're going to start at pi over 3 now. What is my period? Two pi divided by, what's the coefficient out in front? 1. So 2 pi divided by 1 is 2 pi. What is pi over 3 plus 2 pi? What do you got, Cole? 7 pi over 3. So my end here is at 7 pi over 3. Start plus period gives you the end. With me? Okay. This is a cosine function, correct? Okay. So here is how I would start my graph. With a cosine function. My middle is still at 0, so I can bring that into play here. Come on now. So I can bring my middle into play. I started at pi over 3, which means then I'm going to be somewhere like that. Now I've got to fill in -1, 0, +1. Pi over 3, 7 pi over 3. Again, I'm going to ask that we watch here and fill in later for this next part, just so you all see it and you're not trying to do it at the same time. Okay? All right? I need to take the average of those two, right? 1 pi over 3 plus 7 pi over 3 is 8 pi over 3 divided by 2, 4 pi over 3. So I'm really looking at the numerators. 1 plus 7 is 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this is 4 pi over 3. 1 pi over 3 plus 4 pi over 3 is 5 pi over 3. 5 is odd, can't be divided by 2. So I've got to multiply the numerator, or excuse me, the denominator by 2. Want me to do it again? No, Emma. No. Okay. If the numerator is even, divide it by 2. If the numerator is odd, multiply the denominator by 2. Okay? Because if you think about the first one, we had 8 pi over 3 divided by 2. If we multiply the numerator or the denominator by 2, that's 8 pi over 6, right? Which reduces to 4 pi over 3. All right? 4 plus 7 is 11. So that's going to be 11 pi because it's odd. And the denominator gets multiplied by 2. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Give you a couple of seconds to fill those in. Don't fall in the trap of always starting your graph on that vertical axis, because it's not always going to be. There needs to be that gap in there for it. Yeah? Complete graphs for these trig functions that we're doing have 3 labels, high, middle, low, have 5 labels, start, quarter, middle, or start, quarter, half, 3/4, and end. Okay? Try this one. So I know that this is negative pi over 4, and I know that this is 7 pi over 4. That's going to make this be 3 pi over 4. That's going to make this be pi over 4. That's going to make this be 5 pi over 4, which is then going to allow me to put that in there. So it should look like that. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? It's still snowing, yes. No, don't do that. What are you confused by?
Oh, I got it. I'm locked in now. Okay.
Sad thing is, I know when people are lying. Good. What's up?
So if A and B are both negative, would that just never show up? Or would that...
It would flip and then flip. Yep. Well, it depends. If it's sine or cosine. If it's sine, it's just normal. If it's cosine, it's still flipped. Good?